So to recap some of the things that you're learning this week, we're going to be focusing a lot on how to think historically. This is based on an analytical framework that I will go over by the end of the presentation. And this idea of historical memory. The things that we remember about American sports oftentimes tend to be selective. Many of us actually don't really think about the context of when historical events intersect with sports events. And so one of the things that we are going to be doing throughout the class is seeing how you can use those tools to not only help you understand the class, but also understand your own sports history in the United States. So for this week, there's a couple of different things that I want you to think about. The first one is historical memory. And when we talk about historical memory, we are really talking about the way in which evidence is used to narrate or discuss a particular event. And so this can be in the context of sports, it can be in the context of military history, it can be in the context of political science or business. And we're actually going to be exploring all of the different ways in which historical memory is developed in regards to many of the topics that actually relate to your own majors. The other concept that I want you to think about is collective memory. And collective memory really is more about what we think we remember about particular events. So, for example, one of the things that you will see as you explore the different chapters in our class is that oftentimes the way that people think about a historical event isn't necessarily true. There can be exaggeration, there can be questions that are often developed by who gets to write the history. And so collective memory and historical memory are not necessarily the same thing. Historical memory requires evidence. Collective memory is often developed through oral history and anecdotal evidence. In terms of thinking about the 5 C's of historical thinking, that is a way in which you will learn to think about historical events. Now, this is not just unique or applicable to history, but it's really a way in which to develop your critical thinking skills. And that is something that you can actually take from this class and apply in anything that you do. So for this week, you're going to complete an introduction video. You are going to take the syllabus quiz, and you will be writing a sports history essay. And in this particular case, it is your own particular sports history. I also wanted to let you know that as of last fall, there is now a sport and society minor, and this class is actually part of that new minor. So if this is something that interests you, it involves all different areas across the college. And just to give you a snippet of some of the courses that are required, after you finish this class, you will actually have met 3 of your 12 credit hours of coursework through U.S. History, America Through Sport. And as you can see here, there are many different options that you can take based on what your major or area of interest is, if sports is something that you want to do. So keep that in mind and let me know if you're interested in that, and we can certainly get you signed up to have a minor in sports and society. So what I'm asking you to do this week is begin to think about these analytical concepts, and I want you to think about what your earliest memory of a sports event was, and then begin from there. The requirements for the specific assignment are actually in the instructions for the link. And so what I want you to do is to think about your own history as an athlete, and then I want you to apply the 5 C's. And so let's go back to those 5 C's and see if we can get a better way to think about these issues. So it kicked me out, so I'm going to go back so that we can go over them. So in thinking historically, these are some of the different concepts that we think about in history. Now, I want you to be very clear that the way that historians apply them is not always necessarily corresponding in the same way in terms of their general meaning. So please make sure to read the article that is connected to the section this week. And more importantly, if there are pieces that you don't understand, please make sure to post them to the discussion board that I made available, where you can ask questions about what is going on in that article. So just a couple of things. Context is usually something that most students grasp. That is what was taking place at a particular point in time. Causality, of course, is actually something that we all think we are familiar with, but is much more difficult to pinpoint. Basically, it has to do with whether we can pinpoint how one particular issue, event, or idea caused something else to happen. In addition to that, of course, we have change over time. One of the things that you are going to see is the way in which sports develop at different points in history. Complexity has to do with the different ways in which an event is often influenced by many different factors, not just one, which again is what makes causality so difficult. And then lastly, contingency, which actually has to do with all of the different outcomes that could have taken place had things gone differently. Oftentimes, what most of us have a difficulty with is not going to the conclusion that it was always that way. So, for example, one of the things that we're going to be looking at later in the semester is the different ways in which the Olympics developed. And it wasn't always that the United States was dominant. That is something that actually happened with change over time. The dynamics of the Olympics actually changed drastically after World War II and the rise of the Cold War, where the United States and Russia emerge as world superpowers. And so contingency is about all of the different ways in which, if different events had taken place, maybe the outcome would have turned out differently. It is a difficult concept. We are going to be addressing it quite a bit as we go through the semester, but I want you to start thinking about it now and try to put all of these different concepts in your own words. You've got the article that is available through the module. And of course, if you have questions, I will be looking at that discussion board on a daily basis this week to make sure that you are then able to answer what you need for the class. Lastly, I would like you to make sure to complete your video introduction as quickly as possible. Don't forget that it is actually due on Thursday. And so I want to make sure that everybody gets that in on time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I look forward to your posts.